Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Resources Committee, 6th of September 2022, via Teams Live. My name is Councillor Steve Holes and I am chair of this committee and will be conducting the meeting tonight. During the meeting, you will hear from members of the Audit and Resources Committee who are all on your screen now. Also present are the officers from Eastleigh Borough Council who will be presenting reports tonight, and they are on your screen. We have Councillor Broomfield who's joined us, so I should be inviting him in to speak at any given moment, usually prior to members of the committee coming in to speak. We have no members of the public, I believe, asking to speak. Is that correct? No. If we experience a connection problem during this event,
that is correct. Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. If we experience a connection problem during this event, it will be paused, and if a councillor loses connection or joins later, I will ask them to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves for the benefit of viewers. In the unlikely event of myself losing connection, the Vice Chair, Councillor Alex Bourne, will take over. The meeting will be video recorded and will be updated to the council website. More information is available on the council's website on this. So I will start with item 1, which is apologies for absence. Catherine, do I have any apologies?
No apologies, Chair.
And I've received none as far as I'm aware, so that's fine. Item 2 is public participation. No public participation, I guess.
That's correct.
So we will move on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Should any member wish or indicate that they have an interest, please indicate in the normal way, put up your hand or put it in the meeting chat, and we'll record it. If anything comes up during the meeting that you suddenly realise may be a conflict of interest, please indicate. Then we can record that. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting, 19th of July 2022. I need a proposer and seconder.
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. And seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you,
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yeah.
Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay, can I take that then as a vote? All in favour? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any against? Any abstentions? And that is carried. Thank you. Item 5 is future ways of working update, and we have Julia Burt to present that. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. The report is as presented, and the recommendation is for members of the committee to note the contents. I won't go through the report itself, but just to give you a few headlines.
Yes, please.
The report actually goes through phase 1, which concluded in kind of March, April. And we did a performance survey, which I think members of this committee are particularly interested in, and details of that are in Appendix 1 of the report. That was largely positive, and where it wasn't, we've taken some action with individual plans and are looking at performance management across the council. So we move to phase 2, and the report outlines those work streams that we've gone through. And it also talks about the feedback that we've got from staff, which I think again was one of the committee's requests from previous meetings. So that's all outlined in the report, which I did write about a month ago, and happy to say that that feedback has actually decreased across the board, But we will be doing a midpoint survey just to see how staff are feeling, and also to base our next steps upon. I think that's really important to sort of get people's views, especially those who are working at Eastleigh House. So in conclusion, the report is trying to take the best from COVID, if we could say that, the lessons learnt, the sort of hybrid working, but also being quite mindful about the needs of the council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Do I have any questions from Councillor Broomfield? And
No, not at all. Thank you.
thank you, Steve. Okay, open to members of the committee. Are there any questions on the report? Jin, Councillor Tidridge.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and the first one relates to the equality and diversity section in the document. I find it slightly odd that no mention, or it would be good to have seen, for a better way of phrasing it, sorry, it would be good to have seen whether or not assessment had been made at the impact of gender with hybrid working. There has been concern expressed by a number of surveys, reports that gender can be an issue, can be one of the equality issues where disparities tend to get exaggerated a little bit due to hybrid working, simply because of the way that families tend to operate, and there's a concern that it can make women more invisible in the workplace. That's just one example. And there have been concerns that being out of sight, out of mind can have a negative impact on members of staff's career progression prospects. I think that's something that I would be comfortable seeing a little bit more, or just knowing that it had been looked at and that it was being recognised. I really like the fact you've got the case by case, no generalisations, that's great. But it's just making sure that we're not forgetting about gender and other protected characteristics that might be impacted in a negative way by hybrid working.
Julia.
Yes, well, I can see Natalie on the call, and she's also part of the equalities group, as is our head of HR. So basically, we are taking our lead very much from that group. We are risk assessing. So sorry if that hasn't come out in the report, but basically, that's very much our intention. And we're very mindful, actually, that staff have got into a pattern of looking after children. They love the fact that they can walk the children to school and collect them. So that's why we've been flexible. And although we're saying, you know, roughly around a day, we're not saying that is a solid day. It's kind of school hours is fine. So we really want to, I think, actually take that into account when we do our surveys, and hand on heart, people are really sort of grateful for that. We've had people who've had babies over COVID, and they're very nervous about coming back into the workplace. They need to get their baby settled in sort of provision. So we're allowing people to do that as well. So I think it's never a perfect thing, but we are listening to people, and we do want to, you know, have that equality about gender, and we, you know, we monitor that as well through HR reports, which I know come to this committee, but we're doing that sort of biannually as well now. So we're getting a lot of data through, and I think, you know, we are reacting positively to that.
Just following on from that, you've got one of the reports I was reading suggested that men may be, I'm sorry, I'm reading this out, but obviously I appreciate gender's more complex than this, but that there tends to be a generalisation that men may be more keen to get back to the office and be in the office, simply because the way that responsibilities often fall within many households is that simply because of those childcare requirements, it can almost turn into a skew to the gender profile of people actually wanting to be working in the office, skewed more towards men than women, and that therefore leads to that issue of invisibility in terms of looking at career progression, etc. But if it's something which you feel that you've got well in hand, that's great.
Okay, thank you both. And Councillor Park, Tanya.
Thank you. This is relating to Appendix 1 question. So this is a list of the questions on your survey, I understand. And question 8 is, I think the individual people performance process is fit for purpose. And that's only had 24% agree to that, with 45 disagreeing. Do we know what the issue is there?
Yes, we do. This has been picked up in the report. We talked about how best to do that process. This was introduced maybe about 3 years ago, and it's basically there's a lot of forms to fill in, and people have adapted to that. And I think what's happened is people are doing less, but they're doing sort of more as well. So it's kind of getting the balance of, you know, what are we assessing? Because once people were in the office, we could see them and we could see what work they were doing. So I suppose the gist of the survey is, now that people aren't in the office, can we, hand on heart, think about performance? Is performance as good as it was? And I think regardless of COVID, I think we'd be having the same problems with the system that we've got. So as part of our revised people strategy, which will be coming out soon, the head of HR, Suki, is looking at a revised performance management process. The words that kept coming back on this survey bit were clunky, cumbersome, not user friendly. So obviously we don't want that, and we'll take that feedback on board. I think probably this was the low point of the survey. Everything else was really positive, and we were surprised actually that managers felt that they were assessing performance well, but they just didn't have the tools to continually do that sort of process. So we're looking at automated systems as well, potentially, which scoop up information, and they will actually help us with our succession planning, which should be coming from sort of performance management as well. So lots in the melting pot, but yeah, it's one for us that we're looking at.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing the new improved process when it's there.
Thank you. And Councillor Bourne, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, not a question, more an observation. I think the engagement and the care shown for staff in this report is fantastic and should be applauded. It's also great to see local journalists pick up and actually read the report. It's just a shame that the two things they've highlighted, well, I suppose if these are the biggest things they could find, then you know, we're doing a great job. But a bit of noise and remembering to take your cardigan into the office, making inside front page news is quite funny. But actually, on a staff survey, if that's the worst thing we have to worry about, then I think we're doing a really good job. And I think the engagement is brilliant. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Alex. From a personal point of view, I've got experience in my own line of work in manufacturing, where it is a fact now that bosses are looking for ways to keep costs down, and they're using the experience from COVID, where there was a lot of condensed working weeks and a lot of satellite working and working from home, etc. And they've used that experience, and they're now looking at the ways to keep costs down and integrate that into their post-COVID operation. And it's not just businesses like ours, local government, it's across the board. All sorts of companies and businesses are looking at this now, and I think we've just got to get used to monitoring it and making sure our staff are in the best condition that they can be, so that they can produce quality work and be comfortable with it. So yes, Julia, I think you're right. It's good that we are on top of this, and we are moving forward and making sure that we put staff first, but we're not alone in this. This is happening across the country in all walks of life. So definitely one to watch, because it's going to increase, I think, especially if we go through a cold winter. and bosses don't want to turn their heating on. I'm not saying that Eastleigh Borough Council won't want to turn their heating on, but I think it's a real problem, fuel bills for businesses, and they are looking for ways to cut costs and keep things moving. Jin, you've got your hand up. Would you like to speak on?
Yes, please. My second question was around the assessment on climate change. You've given me a very nice segue there. Thank you, Councillor Holes, which is about energy. So again, reports looking at hybrid working, things which tend to impact the overall climate impact is if everybody's working from home, it tends to be worse simply because if you take 100 people, they're heating 100 homes as opposed to heating one office building. Hybrid working can kind of balance that out a little bit, but I'd like to know whether or not there are plans to right size the office space so that we're not heating the entire building if it doesn't have full occupation. And really more about that. Also, are we advising staff on how to minimise their heating bills? Certainly I'm in the position I hybrid work, and I'm in the position where I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to be in the office a lot more this winter because it won't be my heating bills, to be blunt. And I think there'll be lots of other people thinking that, but it'd be good to know what's being done or could more be done to advise workers on how to minimise their energy use at home, and making sure that in some way we are monitoring the full picture from a climate change perspective, not just the immediate emissions from heating and lighting Eastleigh House and other locations, but balancing in that the implications of people working from home, using their own heating, using their own lighting, their own power, etc. There can be an offset in terms of the commute. The difference tends to be about 4 miles-ish if you're driving. So if you're driving less than 4 miles to get to the office, then the energy or the carbon you're saving through not commuting doesn't tend to be balanced out by the overall change in energy use generally. So I'm not stressing that terribly well, but there can be factors like that that kick in. It would be good to know that there's a full picture being built up in terms of carbon, that the council is directly responsible for, and the very scope 3 area of heating your own home. And like I say, advice to staff on how to minimise those heating bills. I mean, for example, it can weirdly work out better to be using a little electric heater in just one room if you're in the house by yourself working than it is to actually switch on the central heating. So little bits of advice like that could be appreciated.
Yes, I mean,
Julia?
Yeah, all of that is being covered by us. One of the work streams is climate change. The climate change manager sits on our project team. So he's always saying it's not a straightforward picture, as you sort of depicted there. And so he's got to come up with those considerations. One of the next steps is about reutilisation of Eastleigh House. So that's entirely appropriate for us to be having a look at climate change as part of that decision. In fact, climate change and the environment affects most of the decisions we're making through this project. So it's a real consideration for us. And obviously we are bound to that sort of professionalism from Andy Brennan, who most of you will know, I think, on the call. And your second point, yes, we are helping staff, you know, look at their energy consumption. We're putting out a lot through bulletins, and it's about their well-being. Actually, it's more about their general well-being as well, because there's a lot of stress associated, isn't there, with payment of bills, and so that mental health piece is also really important. So we're covering that, and we will continue to do that as we go into the winter.
Okay,
Thank you.
Seems that you and I, Jin, are coming from slightly different angles there. I was talking from the employer's point of view, where they're trying to keep their costs down, and you were talking about keeping our home costs down. So it was very interesting. Two sides of the same issue, I think.
It's all cost of the planet, isn't it?
Absolutely. Okay. Do I have any other comments or questions? Okay, could I have a proposal and seconder that we note that report?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Proposed by Councillor Bourne, seconded.
Second, Chair.
Councillor Irish, all in favour? Just say
Agree.
aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And thank you, Julia, for your input there. Very helpful. Item 6, the internal audit quarterly monitoring statement, and that's Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. This is the internal audit monitoring statement for Q1 of this year. So that's the period of the 1st of April to the 30th of June. It summarises the work that's taken place in the quarter, and we've basically spent it completing reviews from the previous year. We've started reviews for this year. We've helped out with the elections, and we've done some assisting with the post-payment checks for the business grants. Also included in this report at Appendix C is the final report from the external quality assessment we had done as approved by this committee, and I'm pleased to say that we got the highest grading that they give. The opinion of the external quality assessor was that Eastleigh Borough Council's internal audit service is delivering to a standard that generally conforms with the public sector internal audit standards. There are a few recommendations for us to tighten up, but I'm very pleased with that report. And I'd like the committee to note my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Broomfield, would you like to come in on this one?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a quick one. On paragraph 5, internal audit activity, the internal audit opinion for 2021-22 presented to this committee in July last year confirms blah, blah, blah. One Horton Heath follow-up review still to be completed. And then further down, it sort of states that there will be a follow-up review at some point. Do we know when this follow-up review for One Horton Heath is likely to be completed, and when it is completed, will its findings be shared with the members of the Horton Heath Development Management Committee?
Yes, it was due to be completed in Q1. Unfortunately, I got COVID, so it had to be postponed. It's all prepped and ready to go. I need a meeting with Andy and the other officers concerned, and once it's done, I'll be happy to share.
Splendid. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And members, any questions or comments on this report? Okay. In that case, can I have a proposer and seconder that we note the report?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you,
Second, Chair.
Councillor Bourne, and thank you,
Second.
Councillor Irish. All in favour?
Agreed.
Aye. Aye.
And any against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's duly carried. Thank you. And thank you, Lisa. Item 7 is the external audit progress verbal update.
I can take that, Chair, and give an update on behalf
Thank
of
you, Jo.
Sarah and Andy. So Andy sent me a summary. He says, to date, the audit is progressing well with work on the material risk areas ahead of schedule. So far, valuations are all completed in June, and an EY specialist has carried them out. Nitrates is an unknown for EY, but they've engaged a specialist who the team have met several times to bring them up to speed. Some areas of the technical accounting need to be agreed, but there's no issues at the current time. With regards to the group assessment, the related company accounts discussed with EY and no issues at the current time. So by the looks of it, it's all progressing well.
Okay,
It says they're going to be on site. The actual audit will be, I say on site, it's probably going to be done remotely, a mix of hybrid, November, December, as was planned.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions on that? Councillor Broomfield?
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And any members have any questions on that verbal report? Okay, in that case, we will move to the, I don't believe we need a proposer and seconder for that, do we? For vote, we just note it.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is a verbal report. Yeah. Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 8, which is the verbal updates from members representing the 3 groups: Strategic Risk Management, Procurement Executive Group and Housing Group. And I attended my first SRMG meeting yesterday. It was very interesting, and just a few notes from it. If I may, the group reviewed the corporate risk register as they do regularly, and discussed, the changes made since their last review. Updates on the operational risk registers from 3 areas were received. These were from Environment Executive, Health and Wellbeing, and the local area managers. Some suggestions were made to officers on this. The most common theme that came out throughout the whole meeting was around attracting staff, new staff, and also recruiting them and keeping the staff, and that particular area. And it was throughout the council. There were a number of comments from officers from various areas saying that was one of their biggest risks, and it was made quite clear that actually this is national or national-wide, and not just local government. There are a lot of job vacancies out there, both in public and private industry and business, and people have choice, and they are tending. We heard from one officer, one manager, who said that they are getting applications in, and they go to set up the interviews, and then people don't turn up for the interviews because maybe they've already got something that suits their whims or desires more than coming to work for us. So it is an issue that the council is aware of and is on top of, and doing everything they can to attract people of the right caliber to the authority. But it is a national issue at the moment, with so many job vacancies and less people available to fill them. It gives people choice. They have options. So I don't think this is going to go away for a while, but our staff are monitoring it and keeping on top of it and doing everything they can. Joe, have you got anything else you want to add?
No, I think you summarised that well, thank you. Unless I don't want to sort of pass the buck, but whether Julia has got any, bearing in mind that she's sort of linked into the work that's going on, whether she wants to just add anything on the back of that.
Julia?
Yeah, I'll just add a little. I'll just add a little. I was going. I'll just add a little bit because we are doing the people strategy, which is a review of the previous one, but absolutely our 3 R's are to recruit, reward and retain, and some of those intermingle, but we've now come up with a kind of draft strategy which has an action plan with it, and that is going to our corporate leadership board for them to have a look at it, and then it will go to our executive team. So that's really hot off the press. And we've also got a learning and development strategy as well, which we're keen also, and that's part of mainly the retention piece.
Yeah, thank you, Julia, and that clearly shows that our staff are on top of it, and management team and etc., and working towards promoting Eastleigh Borough Council as a place that people want to come and work, given the current climate. Are there any questions on that? No? Okay, we'll move on to procurement executive group, and I understand there was a meeting today. Can Councillor Irish or Councillor Park give a short
I
briefing?
can give you something, Chair. I can give you something.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yes, as you say, it was this afternoon, so we're hot off the press. Hot off the press here. Right. Draft update to the contract standing orders, which will be proposed at Council in November, when updates to the Constitution are presented. The update provides the rules around compliance with public contract regulations when using dynamic purchasing systems. The group was happy with the proposal, and the Executive Head of Governance will now share with procuring officers to seek their input. The group reviewed its terms of reference and agreed no changes were necessary. The group reviewed the procurement action plan and procurement performance indicators. It was suggested that officers consider approaching other local authorities to establish a procurement forum similar to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight procurement partnership that previously met, so that best practice can be shared. It was agreed that this would be added to the action list. The group noted that there had been one waiver requested and approved during Q1 of 22-23. An update on the progress of the development of the procurement policy was provided, and questions were, pardon me, lost my place there. Questions were discussed. Currently, the plan is to present the draft policy for scrutiny to this committee on the 1st of November, although the timetable will be reviewed, given some comments raised around marketing test, the proposed policy. The group received a paper on the procurement of spare parts for the council's fleet, which sought agreement where circumstances apply for the procurement of second-hand vehicles and the use of aftermarket refurbished, reconditioned or recovered spare parts, where they meet strict safety and quality criteria. So this was well received by the group, who agreed that this was a positive step. That concludes the meeting, and the next one is the 22nd of November.
Thank you, Wayne. Anything to add, Tanya?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, so I have,
Okay, thank you.
have nothing to add.
Thank you for that. Any members wish to comment on what Wayne has just told us? Okay, Wayne, just one question. The fleet, are we moving towards electric vehicles, do you know?
It wasn't discussed today. Perhaps that's something we should have perhaps asked about, but no, we're just talking about
we have some, don't we?
Yeah, we're just talking about the problems of getting spare parts for the vehicles.
Yes. I mean, it does sort of link in a little bit, doesn't it? It would be very useful for us to perhaps somebody could email us with that answer.
Oh, yeah, I'll find out. I mean, I'm pretty confident it's included in the vehicle replacement programme, but I can get a definitive answer and share it with the group.
Yeah, that would be useful. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that.
And moving on to the housing group, have we had a meeting since our last meeting on this?
No, we haven't had one.
Joe, do you know when they're likely to be having one? Has anybody said anything to you?
I haven't heard anything.
I have the schedule. Give me 2 seconds. I'll dig it out.
There we are. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, so there was a slight misunderstanding with dates. The new dates that I believe are correct are the 16th of September, the 25th of November, the 20th. Actually, I'm beginning to wonder if they've sent me next year's. Bear with me 2 seconds.
No, I think there is one coming up in September.
Yes, it's the 16th at 10 o'clock.
Oh, right. Oh, that's right.
It is the 16th they've sent me then.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yep. So
yeah.
yeah, 29th of November,
Okay, so we'll,
28th of February and the 30th of May. I've got 2 sets of dates here. I'll confirm the February and May ones because they're different.
okay, that's fine, as long as they're in the programme, and we'll be hearing from members of that group probably at the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move on to the Cabinet Forward Plan, which is item 9. And members will receive a list of things that are going to Cabinet. Have you got any of those that you would like us to look at that we're not already looking at? No. Okay, members happy with that? Okay, I need a proposer and a seconder for that. So we know.
I'm happy to propose that.
Happy to second.
Thank you.
Chair.
So Councillor Park proposed and seconded Councillor Irish. All in favour? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, carried. Thank you very much. Item 10, the yes, that's right. Item 10, the action list. There was one item on there from last time. Where are we with that, Joe?
Pleased to say that's been on there a long time, but it can now come off because it's about the external review of internal audit that Lisa's just provided us an update on, and the copy of the report was appended to her report, so that action's now complete.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I'm not. Do we need a proposer and seconder for this? Just to make it official. Can I have a proposer that we take it off the programme? Thank you, Councillor Bourne. And a seconder, thank you, Councillor Irish. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, duly carried. Thank you. Item 11 is the A&R work programme. Are there any additions that we need to consider, and any movement of items going forward that might be delayed or?
I just need to get some clarity around that bad debt report as to whether it's coming in November or January.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it all seems, yep, as planned.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I have a proposer and seconder that we note the action list? Councillor Park proposed, seconded Councillor Bourne. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That's duly carried. Item 12, we need to consider whether to pass a resolution as to whether item 13 should be exempt from disclosure if the public interest is not disclosing the information outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. May I have a proposal and a seconder that we move that, and then we will have to go into the other meeting. So proposed Councillor Bourne, seconded Councillor Irish. All in favour?
Aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. We will do that, and thank you, Councillor Broomfield, for your attendance at this meeting.
Thank you.
And that concludes the main business. We will now
Sorry,
have a short break while we.
Can I just ask a
Who's
question?
that speaking?
It's Councillor Broomfield here. I have absolutely, not for the first time in my life, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about in the next meeting. Am I allowed to attend it on the basis I don't know what you're talking about? Would it be at all interesting for me to sit here and try and work through and find out what's going on, or am I better employed going downstairs and watching police interceptors?
I'm more than
Catherine,
happy
have
that
you
you
got?
can. No, I'm more than happy if Steve wants to join that meeting, he can, and then decide whether he wants to stay. If that's all right, Steve.
Well, as it's Tuesday, police interceptors are going to be on, so there is nothing else to do. So I'll toddle along. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll call you into that meeting then, Steve. Thank you.
Has Steve
apparently
got an invite?
Yes, Catherine's just
I've had the
messaged saying you've got the
Yeah.
invite. So yeah.
So okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, the next formal meeting is the 1st of November, so we will now conclude the business on the open agenda and have a short break while we move to the other meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.